Welcome back to Broadsheet Sydney Around Town. If this is your first time here, don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss a video. I'm Emma Joyce, features editor at Broadsheet, and I'm the host of this short guide to Sydney. Let's get into it. Late last year, Odd Culture Group, which is the group that you are the CEO and director of, James Thorpe, you announced that you were going to be opening a new place in Newtown that has a 4 a.m. license, and it became a big deal. It made headlines because it's the first time in a century that pocket, very specific pocket that is City of Sydney operated, will be given a license to run that early or late, depending on how you think about it. So this new place in Newtown, Pleasure Club, Why is it called Pleasure Club?
I guess there's a lot of different angles that we came at for the name, and everyone in the team that put it together over the past 2 years or 2.5 years sort of had a different take on it, which I actually think is a really, what makes it quite special. My personal take is kind of philosophical. So to cut a sort of very long story short, my foray into hospitality was via studying to be an academic. Which, given what's happened in the past 3 years, thank God that didn't come to fruition, although hospitality wasn't affected at all by COVID, as we know.
No, not at all.
This kind of idea that that was made popular by ancient philosophers like Epicurus, that pleasure is the ultimate good in life, and we should maximize things that maximize pleasure and minimize pain, basically. How that sort of connects in with hospitality is, and what really attracted me to the industry in the first place is we're given this really unique kind of trust by patrons who come to our venues. We're given this, what you'd call a phenomenological access that any other sort of industry doesn't really get to touch. So we get to control what people taste, smell, see, touch, all of the senses. We get to immerse people in a fully curated experience. When sort of putting together the concept, the way I sort of came at it was that, we're building a little sort of pocket universe, as it were, where we get to immerse people in all the best things about life, where you can shed your pain at the door and come in to a space that highlights all the best parts of, welcoming hospitality, good drinks, and obviously the live entertainment, which will be quite substantial and always free at that venue.
Let's talk about the places you already operate so that listeners can kind of get their heads around what this might look like. So you have the Duke of Enmore.
Yep.
You have very recently had ownership of the Oxford Tavern, and we'll come back to that.
Yep.
Odd Culture in Newtown and the Bottle Shop as well. What am I missing?
The Old Fits.
And the Old Fits, of course.
In Woolloomooloo.
Yeah, of course.
Sydney's best pub.
Really, really good venue. Genuinely, very good venue. We had our Christmas party there last year.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, we did.
There you go.
So is Pleasure Club an extension of any of those venues?
No, but it is an expression of our interest in hospitality and particularly in live music. So whereas the Duke is one of Sydney's premier live music venues with a 5-day entertainment roster, Pleasure Club will have a 7-day entertainment roster, always free, and obviously has this development consent from council to trade until 4 a.m. Every night, including Sunday.
Which is really different. And I know that you've said in previous interviews that there's an appetite because of the crowds that you almost have to turf out at midnight.
We shoo them away. And I always tell this story in the context of this project because it's Newtown and King Street in particular is quite close to my heart. In my hospitality career, I worked as the manager at the Newtown Hotel before I bought my first pub. And when we'd finish our shift, which was the pub would close at midnight at that time, the cohort there, you all want to go for a drink together. And we used to be sort of placed in this dilemma at that time where you can either go up to the Marley bar and have sort of like a vodka lime soda spilt in your lap on the side of the dance floor.
Which is sometimes a great time.
Which is really fun sometimes. But if you've just done like a 10-hour shift, it's not always how you want to spend your time sort of blowing off steam afterwards. Or you can sit in a bright gaming room, basically. because Newtown, for the beautiful entertainment precinct that it is, it's blessed with many, many pubs and not very many bars. In fact, I think it has the highest density of hotel licenses in New South Wales, but barely any small bars. In fact, there weren't any at that time. I think there are only sort of 2 or 3 small bar licenses on the Strip in comparison with, I think there are 12 or 13 hotel licenses and over 200 restaurant licenses on that Strip. So we wanted to create a space with Pleasure Club when we saw the space pop up that offers just something different in those late time hours. And that's kind of a passion of the group and a passion project of mine, certainly with opening Odd Culture, which is a one-hat casual dining restaurant on King Street, which had the first 2 a.m. development consent at that time. The concept of a one-hat casual fine dining restaurant being open that late is sort of confusing, especially in a Sydney context. Like I know in Melbourne, dinner sort of starts later for some reason than it does in Sydney.
That's right, yeah. It can be really challenging to find dinner after 10 p.m. anywhere in Sydney.
Yeah.
So somewhere like King Street, it feels like we should always be able to sit down and eat and not just have something to take away.
Yeah, big time.
Or kick on somewhere else that is more about the booze and not necessarily about the food.
Yeah.
So when did you start thinking about the basement bar, the Pleasure Club, and bringing that to life?
The concept and the project is about 2.5 years old. I think it was just over 2 years ago that we came up with the name and the concept broadly. We kind of refined the sort of business plan, I guess, on a trip to the US that we took this year as well. We took a bunch of our senior team, our group executive chef and our entertainment manager over to the US, to New York, New Orleans, Vegas and West Hollywood for 2 weeks.
The vibe of this place, I think, is going to be influenced by all of the different experiences you had in the US.
That's right. It's important to us that the concept isn't pigeonholed. So it's not a New Orleans jazz bar. It's not, a New York speakeasy. It's not a West Hollywood boozer. It's kind of something different because I feel like in the next evolution of venues in Sydney, we really have done the time and place thing. Like you can go and
the themed bars, and some of them are excellent.
Oh, absolutely. But
I agree with you. We don't need to do that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just something new and different. So we took at it from more of a philosophical angle around the idea of pleasure and pain, I guess.
And what about the live music? Do you have an idea of what kind of bands or what kind of entertainment you're going to be putting on?
Yeah. So what's been important to us is seeing Pleasure Club in the context of the Duke, which has a really successful live music roster. Mm-hmm. The Duke is known for higher intensity bands. So, doom metal, hardcore rock, et cetera, et cetera. Loud music.
Loud, definitely.
Large numbers of members in bands, like big stage, big dance floor. So we aren't committing to any particular genre as we've sort of released, but the sort of acts that play at Pleasure Club will be sort of lower intensity, lower member, so duos, trios. There'll be a beautiful baby grand piano on the stage. So it will be quite different to what we do at the Duke. But what sort of brought it on is just the sheer amount of local acts that we have in Sydney. Like our inboxes just overflow with requests from artists to play. There are so many artists and such few live music venues in New South Wales, as we've seen through recent data that the government's released. Sydney is trailing massively behind Melbourne in just spaces for live artists to play. And that's a big commitment that we've made, that, we want to find a space to showcase all these amazing artists.
And as you said, it'll be free. Will there be any ticketed events at all? No, none.
No. It's something that's really important to us across the whole group. We like pubs. So obviously our advent was through pubs. Mm-hmm. We're big believers in pubs as like a social meeting place, and we don't think you can achieve that when you charge for tickets. Similarly with bars, we believe in our venues being free and open to all sort of at all times. That's not to say that maybe eventually there could be some amazing, like the caliber of entertainment that could exceed what a 120 pack space or a 300 pack space at the Duke. But it's not central to our, what we're really passionate about free live music. And we feel like in our venues that do it, we've achieved a business model that can sustain that, which is really exciting.
And all without poker machines.
Yes.
So I would love to talk to you about this because you wrote an opinion piece for Broadsheet about how Sydney, our pubs are shit. And, that was a strong, bold statement, but it comes from a place of wanting to make sure that we have a community hub that doesn't have gambling as its crux.
Yeah. I mean, that piece, for the record, I don't objectively think that Sydney's pubs are shit. Certainly I own, 3 of the best ones, I would say.
It was just a really good headline, was it?
It was trying to highlight what I think is a business case for getting rid of gaming machines. I think the moral argument's really well established in the community, and certainly looking at the response to that piece and others that I've written, and just the broader sort of sentiment around that sort of media storm that seems to have died down after the election, I guess, is that people know that we need change. But there is more than just a moral reason to get them out. They actually do create a third profit center that, unfortunately, business doing what business does will make other profit centers subservient to it if it's lucrative enough, and it certainly is. There's also just on the live music piece briefly, there's a strong argument to say that when Paul Keating introduced poker machines into pubs in the 1990s, that the spaces that they took up, all of these pubs suddenly needed to find a space to put all the machines, and the room that was taken was sort of the spare room off to the back, which usually was the room that was used for live music. Certainly the stage at the Duke was built right smack bang on top of the old gaming room on plans from council. And earlier in my career, every pub I worked at, the gaming room was the old band room, super sad.
It is sad.
So that sort of had the effect of making live music even more peripheral. Which I sort of argue in that piece has contributed to the situation we've found ourselves in.
How challenging was it to get the small bars license?
I think the story of the DA being approved got so much traction because it's kind of seen as a sort of landmark or a line in the sand out of a real period of cynicism from a planning and regulatory perspective into a period now where that cynicism isn't present, and the question is not why, it's why not. So, our proposal was coherent with all the planning regulations and liquor laws, and so there was no reason not to grant it. Certainly it's in a basement space, which is perfect from a sound attenuation point of view. I'm
excited about Pleasure Club. I think it will be a great addition to Sydney. I hope that we'll be able to drop in there most nights of the week if it's 7 days, free entertainment, and with sets kicking off from 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in and telling us all about it.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
And that's all we have time for today. As always, you can keep up to date with what's happening around Sydney at broadsheet.com.au and at broadsheet_Sid on Instagram. I'll be back next week. Same time, same place. Chat then.